Good morning. We're at the gym today. I got to show you something before we start lifting some weights. I know it's like the moving camera. What are we going to do? Don't know how to do this very well. It's kind of dark out here, so maybe you can't see it. Might have to wait for it to get a little bit lighter. But I'm trying to show you snow because we don't snow here very often. And so that's pretty cool. See, there's my foot with my brand new barefoot boots crushing the snow. It's like a thing. Okay, the temperature in here, it says is 22, feels like 10. That might be true. I don't know. I'm just bundled up and I'm working out. We're going to do some bench pressing. We're going to talk about Jesus and hopefully, yeah, that might work. Yeah, we'll try that and see. Got 225 right now. Might do a high rep day today just because I haven't done one in a while. And when it snows, sometimes, and little things like that happen. It just, you get in a different mood and you want to do some different stuff. So I really haven't done more than 5 reps on any sort of benching. So we'll see if I can get to 10 reps with 225. It's a good goal, right? 10 reps with 225, especially when you only weigh like 170 pounds. I don't know. That's just me. But I guess Jesus' thought should be, there's so many. I'm going to talk about, I guess the one that's been on my mind the most the last day or so is David. He's one of my favorite Bible characters, and I've been thinking about him a lot because of just, I guess, partly because of how his faith worked and his trust for God's plan and God's timing compared to, other people in the Bible that God told to go do something great, and they jumped the gun a little bit. So anyway, let's bang out a set, and then let's talk about David. And I'm moving the mic so the bar doesn't destroy it. Wow, that was easy. Easy. Kind of nice to be easy for once. That's a good sign, though. There's certain thresholds, like benchmarks, you say, for stuff. So if I can crank 10 out that quick, that easy, or like I felt like I had reps left in the tank, that wasn't like, oh, here's 10, I better stop. I barely got it. No, it was like 10, easy. Awesome. Happy about that. So yeah, we'll just work there today. Bring a different mindset. There's no rush, not working, because it'd be counterproductive to spend twice as long trying to work, because you gotta drive so slow, because our roads, aren't really snow prepared. Then you gotta get snow out of the way of the work you're gonna do. It's just not worth the time and the hassle and the money. So, King David. Think about King David. when I was a kid, of course, it's a kid, you're like, oh man, David killed Goliath, he fought Philistines, he was king. Then you get older and, you start realizing that as cool as that is, there's even more to David than just that. You start thinking about, as an adult, having to wait for things to happen, whether it's, almost adults, you can't wait for high school to get over, or you're in college, you can't wait for college to get over, you're out of college, you can't wait to get in that perfect job or that perfect place, and, you're trying to figure out ways to cut corners, to cut out the middleman, or cut out the fluff, or whatever it is that's just in the way, man. David got anointed king when he was a kid. He didn't get crowned until he was 37. And I don't know what, if you talk about life expectancy then versus now. I mean, I don't know how old David was when he died, but, he probably spent half his life not being king, and then half his life being king, roughly. I don't remember if the Bible tells us how old he was when he died, but, he's 37. I'm 43, so, I mean, if that was it's some sort of comparison, I'd be sitting here as okay, that's been 6 years of being king, and the whole rest of my life, well, what did David do the rest of his life? He was a warrior. We know that. But think about what else David could do. I mean, he had to be, like I said, one of the most well-rounded people. Because we're looking for, society, doesn't really like tough, masculine, warrior-type men. They love, the soft, artistic, musical, poetic. Well, David was both. That's the crazy thing about David. He was both. He didn't sit there, nowadays everybody wants you to be this one thing. David's all of it, He could fight. He would take a sword and literally chop your head off. Or he might go over here and write a song about how awesome and amazing God is. And, and the poetic, observing with nature and things that God has done. That's just such a different vibe than so many, people now where, people are on YouTube, or people are on, at your church or your school or wherever, and they're just pushing hard at this one thing, and everything in their life revolves around being this one kind of way. These idiot alpha gym bro types, that are trying to be influencers, or, the little kind of funny acting dudes with the beret hats and the guitars. It's David was kind of everything in one, And so I've always, either consciously or subconsciously, even kind of wanted to be like that, where I can take my guitar and write a song, but you hit me, I'm going to punch you in the face harder than you hit me. It's just, you got to be able to, do both. Protect your family and praise God, and not be ashamed of either one of them. Because, again, society kind of tells you you're not supposed to hit back. It's always oh, you're getting just as much trouble for defending yourself as you do being the actual criminal. And it's so stupid. But, again, David was both. So let's do another set and talk about David a little more. And then, talk about maybe some of the downside to David. And then just how God still worked in redemption to, give us something great through the bloodline. Another easy 10, man. I didn't expect it to be that good today, man. I'm serious. That was awesome. I can't remember the last time I did 10s. I mean, it's probably been a while. And not that, only doing 5s is bad or only doing 10s is bad or something, but it's just the familiarity. And so it's like you drop down to a number like 225. It's like a benchmark number for a lot of people, Like when you start lifting weights, okay, you got like a little weightlifting side trip here. You start lifting, especially if you're a teenager or something, you're lifting the bar usually with some small stuff on it. Nothing wrong with that. That's how we all started. I mean, look, I remember when I couldn't even lift the bar. I was probably 8 or 9, but my friend had a bench up in their attic, and I look at it and I'm like, oh, it's just that metal bar. That's not that heavy. Man, the thing like crushed me. Because I probably weighed 40 pounds. I mean, the bar probably weighed as much as me. No lie, I was tiny. And so, your first goal is to get a whole big plate on there, and then you start lifting some more, and you're like, well, I got one plate now let me get that second plate. And I think most guys that lift, even though you go to any gym and you'll see guys that lift, there's always that one guy, right, that lifts, fill it up, right? But, you go to the gym most of the time, you're going to see people lifting 2, and then maybe a little bit more, And then, of course, occasionally you'll see the guy with 3. Once in a while, there's the guy with 4. You almost never see a guy with 5, but they're there. I know a couple of them. But, 2 is like this number that so many people do it that it makes like everyone else want to do it, if that makes sense. But then once they do it, then it's like, again, in gym thinking, 10 reps, it's like a number, that people go for too. So you kind of have these 2 trains of thought. Well, I got to do 225 because that's just, man, you're a wimp if you can't do 225, And then over here, you've also got the school of thought that like, oh, you got to do 10 reps. And so the 225 for 10 reps is like this perfect intersection of, the way people think. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you can't do it, don't beat yourself up either. There's no, gym God Almighty that's going to come in there and throw you in gym purgatory for not being able to do 225 for 10. But it is nice to be able to do it and set a goal and build it up and get there. And so, a few times in my life that I've just decided to do it because that's kind of a training cycle or whatever it was. I did it and it was fine, but it was hard. I'm not going to lie. But today, in 10-degree weather, all bundled up, it's easy. I don't get it, but probably because I've been lifting 250 for 5, but I don't know. I did the last meet with actual judges, I think I did 280, whatever the weird thing with the kilograms, so it would make it like 280 point or 282, I don't remember what it was. It was a little over 280, like a cup of sugar more than 280. So back to David. So if you've read the Old Testament, you know the story of David. So you've been tracking with me. Hopefully I didn't tell you anything totally out of the blue, but it's just the idea of David being a warrior and David being a singer-songwriter. Same guy, same heart, same mind. So again, something that David wrote, and it tied right into something I heard this morning on Vince Miller's podcast. Clean hands and a pure heart. That's in the book of James. Well, David wrote a psalm, so I'm sure James was thinking about the psalm when he was writing James. And in the psalm, it's talking about, people having clean hands and a pure heart, who aren't vain, who don't swear deceitfully, how they'll be blessed by the Lord. And of course, if I'd not been driving in the snow, maybe I would have Googled the actual psalm to tell you which one it is, but because there's only 150 to choose from. But anyway, the point is this idea of clean hands and a pure heart. David wrote a lot about a pure heart throughout the Psalms and wanting to always have one, and when he got away from it, wanting to get back to it. That's another thing. A lot of people that we see make mistakes in the Bible, didn't make up for it in the sense of like repenting, believing, relying on God in faith. We see Saul turning away from God and just staying turned away from God. We see, I'm going to get these kings messed up. Was it Asa, I think, that had followed God, and then he abandoned God for something, and he got leprosy, and instead of consulting God, instead of leprosy being the thing that drove him back to God, instead he just started just only relying on the doctors and the marvels of ancient medicine, to get him well, even though all he had to do is come back to God, because in the Old Testament, there's examples of what to do about leprosy, how to treat leprosy. We see, Jesus healing leprosy. We see the priests being able to do things in the Old Testament to maybe eradicate leprosy to a point. I mean, it's, how God was going to work miraculously and supernaturally or not. But the point is, the guy never did it. David, on the other hand, we see two big mistakes he made. And, the one, of course, that we talk about the most would be with Bathsheba. And as soon as the prophet called him out, what did he do? He repented. He changed ways, And then the other one, he took a census, and, there was a certain way you should and shouldn't count people that God had told them, Israel as a whole, to do. This wasn't a David-specific rule. It was just, count the warriors, but don't count all the people. And I guess you just can play law of averages and make assumptions, but for some reason, David wanted to count like an actual census of all of Israel, and that didn't end well either. And then of course we see the consequences and the outfall. Even with forgiveness, there's still consequences sometimes. We can't confuse forgiveness with the lack of consequences. It's just, that's not how life works, guys. It's not. And but we see David, at the other hand, we'll wrap up after this last set, the beautiful ending to his life, and the way God was able to just continue his work on and through even Christ, and by extension all the way down to us. Yeah, I feel accomplished there. Oh yeah, I had to fight a little bit at the end, so man, I feel like I picked a perfect number today, perfect rep range. Man, easy and in the sense of like, there's some context to easy, but easy, pretty easy. Set 3 was the challenge. You saw I got a little pause there, reset. That's good. I mean, that's because you want to work. Don't want it to be too easy, but yeah, that was good stuff. I love it. So David, let's wrap up David here. So you see at the end of David's life, and if you want to go back and contrast it to Saul's life, that's fine. You got David, and as he's getting near death, and he knows it. He's not delusional, thinking he's going to live forever, drink some magic water or something. So he's going to go and he's going to appoint Solomon as his successor as king, because one of his other sons was trying to wedge his way in there. Goes ahead and has his coronation, basically makes him the king. He had already set up everything, stockpiling all the resources and materials so that Solomon could build the temple. And see, there in itself is another example of having to wait, because David was a warrior. So God wanted someone not disconnected from him, of course, but just somebody else, but he had that guarantee, your son will build it. So you accumulate the materials, Solomon will build it. It's going to be a team effort. We're all in this working together. It's going to be great. And so that's what happened. And then, of course, we see if you read the genealogy, we just had Christmas, y'all might have read the genealogies of Jesus in Matthew and Luke, I think. I hope I'm right. And we see where, David, Solomon, so on, so on, the bloodline of Jesus. And so, you got this preparation. You've got the temple. You've got these promises, these representations of the coming Messiah. And then, of course, now we have the Messiah. And hopefully we'll have Jesus in our heart and life through repentance by faith. And if not, hit me up. We need to talk. It's that simple. So, man, I did my work there. I want to just do some other stuff because, I'm not going to act like I'm cold, because, hey, you get moving, you're not cold. People are cold are the people that don't do anything. So, I'm going to keep doing things. So, y'all go out and have a good day if you want to.